Hey, imagine funding 400 to 500 mortgages a year and only working 40 hours a week, no evenings, no weekends, and only working with clients that were referred to you, not through social media, not through any ads, all just relationship based. Well, today's guest, Peter Majthenyi, that has done just that for many, many years. This is actually a repost of an episode, my very first podcast episode. You probably can tell by my cracky voice. I decided to do this podcast. I reached out to Peter Majthenyi, and he was gracious enough to come on and talk to me about how he ran his business. And I went back and re-listened to it because I thought, you know what, I want to listen to some of these old episodes that were really good and popular when they came out. And there's so much gold in this conversation. A couple of things I picked up from this re-listen were, first is that he only works during work hours. So when he's at work, he's fully focused, bagged lunch, no meetings. He is dialed in and doing his work. Which again, I was like, man, that is so good, because then you can actually have a life outside of work. The second thing that I picked up that I missed the first time, and I picked up this, listened to this many years later, is the importance of focusing on your unique ability. So this idea that you need to focus on your unique ability to be really dialed in at what you're good at, and then hire everything else out. And Peter has done that. His is building that initial connection, coming up with a plan for the client, convincing them why they should work with them, and then handing them off, which I thought was, again, a great reminder. Something I've been thinking about a lot at our brokerage level is, like, I call it zone of genius. But the idea is that everybody has a genius, and it's like, how do we get people? Don't think about an org chart. Think about a zone of genius chart and trying to get people into the right spot on the field. And then he also talks about the number one skill you must develop as a mortgage broker. And hint, it's actually not underwriting. He'll tell you what that is. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation I have with Peter. At the very end, I'm going to share with you. I've had other conversations with Peter that are not recorded. I'm going to share the one of my favorite pieces of advice that I got from Peter. And when I had met him once face to face, I'll share that at the end of this conversation. Hey, I'm Scott Beckford. This is the Mortgage Brokering Podcast, and we create this to help you in your mortgage business. Hopefully you find this useful. I know that I have found my conversation with Peter to be useful. If you want to give me a follow on Instagram, check that out. Also, if you can find it, what I'm up to on whybricks.com, check out this conversation. Oh, and also I want to give a shout out to OwnWell, which is an amazing tool for allowing homeowners to monitor their home equity and buying power. And if you don't know what that is, go check them out, ownwell.ca/Scott. And I'm telling you, this tool is going to revolutionize the way brokers manage their clients' equity, as well as create opportunities. Hey, Peter, how's it going today?
Good, thank you.
So what I'd like to start with, Peter, is just tell us a little bit about yourself personally, because we want to get to know about you, and then just about your business.
Well, I've been brokering for over 25 years in the Toronto or GTA area. I'm probably one of the original dozen that started in this industry when I started. Mortgage brokering was in its infancy, and really no one was aware of it. So totally a different landscape. But graduating from university, I didn't even know what a mortgage broker was, but it sure sounded more exciting than being a trader, which I graduated for. Reaching out to people and offering them money seemed to be a heck of a lot easier than asking for it. So I've enjoyed it every day since.
So one of the originals that started in the business. Yeah. So what about your family life? Like, do you have a family and stuff?
Yeah, I have a family. I have three boys, three grown boys now, university age, late high school. It's all going well. One of them's in business and getting pretty interested in what I'm doing, so we'll see where that goes. And, of course, a wife at home, so all good. No complaints. I know that you were asking me recently about, how I run my business. Well, two key things, if it matters to you, the audience, whatever, is that I've always just committed 40 hours a week to this, and I've always, had dinner at home. It's just part of my value proposition. But when I'm in the office, I'm totally focused. I don't take meetings. I bag a lunch. I don't let people come into my office. It's like I'm on stage for that 8 hours, and then I go home and I shut it down. And that seemed to work very well. And hey, did I lose a couple deals every month by not taking an evening call or doing a weekend meeting? Absolutely I did. But it was a price I was prepared to pay, and well worth it. Second thing about my business, if you're interested in, is I learned very early that for me, the biggest penetration or the way to grow my business most effectively the way I wanted to is to spend all my time and energy and resources cultivating the clients I have and to basically creating them into disciples to be my sales force and introduce me to other people. So even to this day, we don't do any advertising in the yellow pages or in any kind of print. And I don't take any inquiries that come through the internet or were not referred to me by someone I know.
That's such good advice. I mean, I've got a young family, and it's so easy to just keep expanding the number of hours I work, thinking that it's easy to tell yourself I'm doing it for my family, but then your kids are like, hey, well, I haven't seen you, Dad, in like a week, and so it's good to put that first, and then obviously then when you're at work, be fully on, just be dialed in and focused. So it's something I'm definitely not at that level yet, but I'm constantly trying to improve it. So
well, if it's any consolation, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes years and years of conditioning. I go on holidays and never take a laptop or a mobile phone, and it's not easy to do. It is kind of a therapeutic exercise. You have to definitely bit by bit work on it. It doesn't happen overnight.
Well, you're definitely an anomaly, because I notice a lot of people that in my industry that are trying to grow, they seem to be, they're on 24/7, and so it's good. It's good to hear somebody you can do this business and still have a life. So before I dive into your story, I just want to ask you about a success quote, because I love quotes. I love how they inspire me and get me motivated. So do you have a quote that you that's important to you, that's made an impact in your life or business?
Well, actually, I have a lot of quotes. I would basically say my life quote is "Do what you've always done, and you'll get what you've always gotten." Okay, mm-hmm. And then for business, boy, there's so many. I think the key to any business is, I don't know if this is exactly a quote, but it's more of a mindset, is that really understand your unique ability. Don't think you can do everything, because you're probably terrible at a lot of the things you think you're good at. So spend some time in, education or some kind of course you can take that determines what your strengths are. And the key to my business and keeping me happy and invigorated is always delegating as much as I possibly can, because by no means do I think I'm good at everything. I've worked hard to determine what my strengths are, and I completely avoid tasks and responsibilities where I know I'm weak, and I empower other people to take on those responsibilities. I think if everyone knows their place, in my office is a very strict rule. People only do their specific job description, what they've been assigned to do, and it works like, I like to think it works like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, from my conversations with you in the past, I've often thought of your business as like an assembly line, and it almost like where you put a car in and the tires go on and the doors and the paint job, and yeah, it does seem that everybody knows what part of the assembly that they're involved in. So
yeah, it's a bit of a Henry Ford mentality over here.
Yeah, that's good. It's great, especially when you're trying to be efficient and still be able to have time, like you said, for your family. So
that's what Henry Ford was one of the original innovators of efficiency, right? Return on your time.
I love Henry Ford said, if I listened to what people want, I would have given them a faster horse. It's always cracked me up, that quote. So it's about sometimes understanding what the market needs, not just what they think they want. So one of the things I also find that for me anyways, I've been doing this for 8 years, is that failure also is a great teacher. And so I would love to hear a story of something that you'd failed at and then what you learned from it. So something, if you can be specific about, something you thought was going to work maybe and didn't, and then what you learned and how you changed from it.
Well, I can honestly say I don't have any failures that left a lasting impression on me. I never think of things as problems. I always, think of them as challenges. Give some examples, and some brokers who've been brokering for a while appreciate, when First Line closed down, I think a lot of people envisioned that as a huge problem. That was the biggest boon for my business, because I had thousands of First Line clients. I reached out to all of them and they said, hey, listen, the landscape's changed. You may want to change with it. CIBC is not First Line, and we just wrote an amazing amount of business, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm not a good one to ask that question, because whenever there is a failure, and I'm not trying to think I'm above the line, so to speak, but whenever there's a failure, I always think, okay, well, there's going to be something in there that we can make some money at or turn it to our advantage. So I've always had that mindset. So I can't honestly think of anything that I've done in the past that I would have done differently. And most of the things that, in our industry at least, most of the things that do happen to us, we have no control over anyways. Our biggest strength is being able to adapt. And one word of advice I have is, anyone who thinks that the landscape, particularly in the last few years with lenders in the financial industry, isn't a moving target, it's absolutely always going to be a moving target. You just have to move with it. And I think more energy spent in adapting new ideas, new strategies, and how to leverage these changes is money or I should say energy and money, much better spent than worrying about all the things that are going to go wrong.
Right. That's such good advice. I agree. Like even in the 8 years that I've been doing this, I've noticed a huge, like up, my market ups and downs, and being able to adjust is critical to survival, and when you told me that story before about First Line, that was fantastic. The idea to just, take what they've given you and make something great from it. So
you got it. Well, that's, we can't just pack up our tent and go home. Right.
Right. So one other thing I've noticed too about talking to successful mortgage brokers is they all have a system or a process, and they're willing to tweak it in order to get better results. So could you just share an example of a sales process or some follow-up process that wasn't working, and that what you changed, so that just can give us an idea of how we can think about, making those little adjustments?
Well, I'm glad you brought up little adjustments, because that's the way I perceive that, is that, no sales process or system is perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, right? It's always evolving. It's always got to be optimized. It's always got to be changed. It's like any computer program. It's completely always updated. It doesn't last forever, right? So a lot of people think they're looking for this perfection in their system, and then that's it, we're good. Well, no, you can expect, it's a given, that, it looks perfect now, but it's not going to be so perfect maybe in a week, a month, a year from now. So you have to always be open to how you're going to tweak it. So the reason I liked your comment about small adjustments, in my career, I've never had a huge adjustment. I'm adjusting all the time. I'm always making small adjustments, and I find that it's, you make those little, you're driving a plane, you're not going to make a left-hand turn. You're going to keep turning it a degree here and a degree there. Next thing you know, you're going left, right? So anyways, the point being is, if you want to, but my specific process, if really briefly, is, I'm the point guard, right? I'm the face, I'm the salesperson, the personality, and people are introduced to me. And then through a process of elimination, there is no right or wrong mortgage, I tell them. I said there's only an educated choice. So through a process of elimination, we determine what financing package, mortgage rate, what have you, is going to ultimately help them pay less interest. They quickly learn that it's not the interest rates, the maneuvers I'm pulling to pay less interest over the life of this mortgage. And then once I get them on the same page, we're going to go for a certain product, then I pass it on to someone in my office who will obviously prepare the paperwork, answer their questions about documentation, and bring it to closure. So that's a bit of the process. If you like, and maybe this is one of your questions, is if you want to ask me about my process on how I get that person to call me, I'd be glad to answer that.
Sure, yeah. How about that? Give me an example of how do you get them to call you? Because there's lots of different parts of the process, but even just one would be great. So.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of quick ones. Well, I said earlier that everyone's referred to me, so usually it's surprising how few phone calls I take nowadays. I used to take hundreds of phone calls every day 5 or 10 years ago. Now I get like 10, but I get thousands of emails. So the point is, typically they're introduced to me, again, by a past client, friend, colleague, realtor, what have you. And then we start usually with an email exchange. So in my office, I've prepared a half a dozen different templates. So if the email is something like, hey, John Doe asked me to call you, I'm looking at buying a house. Well, I have this template. It's already put together. Of course, I changed the name. I change a few of the verbiages, and I have some attachments about my value proposition, some things we'll look at. I actually encourage people to read this material before they call me. I actually tell them, read it once or twice, because thereafter, when you do call me, and if we do happen to meet, it's going to be far more fruitful, because a lot of your questions will be answered, and B, you'll have some questions you didn't really think about, which I invite. So that's how the process begins. And then, of course, as I said a moment ago, we take it further.
Right. Yeah. And then so those emails over time, I'm sure you probably, if we look at one of those emails from 2 years ago, it probably is a little bit different.
They change every couple of weeks. The dates change, the verbiage changes. Jim Flaherty passes away. The bond market's going up or down. 10-year fixed is hot now. Yeah, so it's always being tweaked. I would say probably tweak that template once or twice a week when I'm sending it out, just to keep it looking and sounding and being current
and fresh. And so, do you actually set aside time to look at your process, or does it just do it? Are you doing it like organically in the middle of it?
Sorry, one more time.
So do you set aside time to, look at your business process and go, this area could be improved, like sort of, block a half an hour, or is this just something that you do on the fly when you're like, hey, this needs to be adjusted, and you adjust it?
Well, we as a team, we not only have team meetings every few months and so on, but no, it happens organically. People come, everyone's an equal here. There's no supervisor or manager or elite broker, and everyone's an equal here, even administrators. And administrators have been super insightful on, hey, we should change this process, that process to be more efficient. And we can collectively say, yeah, that makes sense, or we collectively don't. And we move on. So it's definitely more organic. It's not as rigid as, sitting down the first of the month and putting together a business plan. There's a lot of moving parts in our industry, and what works today could totally not work tomorrow.
Right. So that you have to be willing to, and I'm sure that your conversations with the clients and what your research that you're doing allows you to adjust it on the fly instead of trying to, wait for 2 weeks when you have that time scheduled to make an adjustment.
Yeah, let's face it, we learn a lot of information from our clients about our processes or lack thereof, and then we'll make that change immediately. I mean, listen, we're all small businesses. We don't have the time to have meetings and evaluate the practicality of some of this stuff. I mean, that's the whole point of running a business. You've got to be nimble. You've got to react effectively immediately.
That's awesome. Thank you for that example. So what another question I'd like to ask is, so what one thing or habit do you think has made you successful? How many years you've been doing this? 25?
Just over 25. I actually lost count.
So what do you think what habit has made you successful?
Pardon?
What one habit or thing that you think you've done over the last, because I've met people just not to, that have been in the business 25 years and they're sort of still, it's every month is who knows what's going to happen. So what do you think you've done that has made you successful over the past 25 years?
Well, if I could summarize it, I was telling you earlier about my schedule throughout the week, and I think it's consistency of the product or the process. It's kind of like McDonald's. When you show up, when you talk to this client, the next client, the story is the same, the information is the same. I was telling you about templates. If you want to call me, forget about reaching them out after 6 o'clock kind of thing. So the idea is, I think it's the process of predictability for the consumer and anyone they refer. And ultimately what you're doing is managing their expectations, right? So I think the thing that I do best, both here and at home, is I manage people's expectations. It's not a matter of who's right or who's wrong. It's a matter of them, being comfortable or knowing what to expect or being comfortable with what to expect.
Right. No, that's great. Yeah. Managing, it's an easy way to mess your business up if you don't manage other people's expectations well too. So.
Yeah, everyone's different, right? So not one shoe's not going to fit everybody, right? Or every situation.
Okay, so now I'd just like to ask you a few questions where you can, I call it the rapid fire questions, where you can give little shorter answers if you like. But so what do you think is the number one thing holding back most mortgage brokers from being successful? So earlier you're talking about people sort of in the 1 to 5 year mark when they're trying to get their traction. So what do you think is holding them back from really being able to grow their business?
Sales training.
And so any advice on like where they could get that if it's not available currently?
Well, I think a lot of salespeople and brokers think they're good salespeople, and I would bet if they went to their local sales training course, be it given by Xerox, which is one of the best in the world, or whomever, be Joe Stump or any of these. I mean, there's lots of them. They'd be quick to learn that they're probably not as good of, and I'm the first to admit it, probably not as good of a salesperson as they think they are, because people ask, hey, is it selling mortgages? Well, we're not really selling mortgages, or we're giving people credit. I mean, that's pretty darn easy to extend credit. It's not like we're asking them for checks or trying to sell them a house or sell them a car. That's tough sledding. Mm-hmm. So really, the sales training is a bit different. But the point being is, I think sales training it's all sales training in my opinion. If you can take some basic sales training and always continually improve your skill and improve your story and recreate yourself, you'll do more transactions, right?
Yeah, I agree with you because one of the cool things about being a mortgage broker is often, unless you're doing private loans, is you don't have to ask for money. So you get to go in and be like the white knight who helps solve their problem and help them understand things. And don't worry, it doesn't cost anything. And so you're for sure, if you have to ask for money, then you would have to be a lot better salesperson. So maybe the salespeople who are getting trained that have to actually ask for money, that's a good place to learn some skills.
Yeah, I mean, I think I wouldn't be very successful if I had to ask people for checks to buy their car or checks to buy their mutual funds. I think that's just not my strength or my temperament. But hey, for me to extend people credit and give stuff for lack of a better expression, give stuff away because there is no fear charge for our services for all intents and purposes. That comes naturally to me. That's much easier for me. But it still takes, as we well know, it's very competitive because other people are doing it as well. It still takes a degree of sales ability. And I don't think sales ability, I think there's some natural and innate part of it, but that's only half the picture. There is no one who can say that they're not a better salesperson by taking sales training. Sales training is just like any education. It's something you're taught. And if you have an innate ability, you're just going to be a faster learner.
Right. That's great advice. So next question is, do you have an internet resource or a program or something that you've used in your business that has been that's really helped you that we could share with our listeners?
Internet resource that helps with my business. Well, I personally, of course, at Mortgage Architects, we've got a great CRM program. I have another program I use, which is called CR Works, which has been around for a long time. I reach out to my clients now. Everything we do here is electronic. We do very few print communication with our client base. And of course, I mean, geez, in this day and age, there's so many resources. I mean, you're out of business if you're not on Facebook and Twitter, right? In my opinion. And of course, what I find is a lot of websites in general, not just in our community, get stale. So I think a good place to invest time and energy is a very good and or efficient company, person, individual, whatever, who manages your website and is constantly upgrading that, because that is really the medium that this generation is 100% relying on, right?
And it's the first look they get of you, because often if somebody, I'm sure your referrals, they say, hey, talk to Peter, they probably type your name in Google and then up pops your website and they want to see a consistent message.
Right. And another one that I really rely on heavily is CMHC, because it's perceived, and it is, a neutral site. It's not a site that you're sending them to, Remax or Mortgage Architects or whatever. It's a very neutral site. So that really, I find when I direct clients there for their inquiries about rates and the Bank of Canada and where the market prices are going or have been, I find it really legitimizes and validates the fact that I'm the consumer advocate. I want all the information they digest to be neutral, and my only goal is to make an educated decision. I'll never tell them what mortgage to take.
Right. No, that's good. I've noticed that actually in other conversations with you about how you use someone else creates the content, like the Globe and Mail, and it's good. You'll just share that, and instead of, you don't have to recreate it, just share those resources, and then you become become the expert by pointing it out to them, because they wouldn't have found it or didn't know it existed. So if you had one book you'd recommend for our listeners, what would it be?
Oh, geez. You're talking in a business sense?
Yeah, business, or something that you think would help, like this 1 to 5 year mortgage broker that you think, hey, if I were you, this is the book I would recommend you read.
Geez. Well, I'm going to mention a book that I think covers both your personal life and your business life, and it's The New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, because it really helps you put yourself into perspective. It talks about your ego, and you were saying earlier, what do you think holds a lot of people back in our business? Well, I think in general, what holds a lot of people back is their perception of themselves, or how they want to be perceived, or in other words, your ego. And this book is actually amazing. It tells you how to kind of keep that, and like everyone does everything in life, from the waking moment, it's all about their ego, and it's kind of interesting how to keep it in check. And it plays into these things we've talked about today. Don't be afraid to do something new. Don't be afraid to take the selling course. Don't think that you know everything. Guaranteed 100% you don't. And so I think that's a good book that encompasses both personal and business life.
Cool, awesome. I haven't actually read that one, so I'm gonna put it on my list. And I've
read it twice. It's so good.
That's awesome. So I have two last questions for you. So the first one is, where do you think our industry is headed? So where's the opportunity? So, obviously it's going to change. And I know that this answer can change, but right now, if you wake up this morning, where do you think the opportunity is?
Well, actually, I don't think the answer will change. And my answer is, I'm 100%, not even 99% confident in this answer. The days of getting more wealthy, I want to clarify that's more wealthy, not wealthy, doing mortgage brokering alone have come and gone. That ship has sailed, right? Mm-hmm. Now you can make a good living, and it's just the mechanics of, that's the matrix of the number of lenders, compression on number of lenders leaving the marketplace, compression on commissions, number of competition. Our community as brokers growing. So it's not just one singular thing, it's everything. So the days of, making a lot of money, being extremely financially successful, being only a mortgage broker, those days have come and gone. I mean, you can become a mortgage broker and make a very good living. Please don't get me wrong. But a lot of people, most people engage in being self-employed or commissioned or becoming a mortgage broker because they're looking to not plateau and then live out the next 20 years. They're looking at what's happening next and how can I leverage my knowledge and leverage my relationships to make more money. That's the whole foundation of being an entrepreneur. If they didn't want to do that, they would just work at the bank and be happy with their salary, their severance, and their pension. So there's no doubt in my mind the days of being financially better off in a progressive manner, mortgage broking at that. So what do we do next? Well, in my opinion, all of us or most of us have excellent intimate client base where they trusted us with their mortgage. We typically have a much more intimate relationship with them than they would with their bank teller who gave them the mortgage or whatever the case may be. But we're throwing it away because we're doing one transaction with them. We're getting paid by an institution. An institution nicely pushes us aside and takes on our client and then strips them apart and sells them everything else under the sun they possibly can. The credit card, the checkbook, the GIC, the RSP, list goes on and on. We all know that the mortgage is the least profitable product for the institution. It's really just an anchor product to get introduced to new market share and then, of course, now engage in the products that really do make the money. Car loans, credit cards, you know this stuff, right? That's where the spreads are made. Spreads aren't made on mortgages, okay? So we have to start letting our minds evolve or our intelligence evolve, because if you think about the financial services, our mortgage broker model is the most flawed model in the entire financial industry, other than places like real estate agents, and everyone would agree with this, is because we do this one transaction, we say goodbye, and then we're going out hunting for the next transaction. That's not how you buy a business. You can make a good living, but it's not how you build a business that has a legacy, some worth at the end of the day, and is basically paying an annuity. We all know insurance salespeople or mutual fund salespeople or investment advisors, and they build up the book and they're on cruise control at the age 55. They're, do they take some bleeding in their book? Yeah, but they're getting the annuities. They've got a book of business they can sell to colleagues and partners and so on and so forth. So that's an intelligent successful business model. So my point is, we have these great relationships. So we've got to stop giving them to bankers so that they can pick them apart and make a lot of money on them. So all of us brokers need to start thinking of a way of how we can leverage this relationship and make more money. So this is 100% the future, not even maybe, for the mortgage broker who does want to go to the next level, is after they built that relationship and given them that mortgage, they need to start having conversations about, I'm going to take care of your insurance. You don't need to go to an insurance company. I've got a partner here. I've hired someone. I've made an association with another company, and we're going to put you on our books and we're going to sell you insurance. And then they're going to sell them the GIC. And then they're going to do, so my point is the broker has to expand his financial offerings. And this is what we were talking about at the Town Hall of Mortgage Architects, which is already being proactive on this. They have to expand their product offering so that everyone benefits. The borrower benefits because they're getting some independent attention and individual analysis on their particular situation. They're not just going to a bank. I always tell them, hey, you go to the bank for your investments. That's like going to a Ford dealership and asking what kind of car is best for your family. So the borrower benefits. Of course, we benefit, and then we have this referral tree and this family that's growing and growing and growing. So definitely, the broker has to start getting involved with expanding the product offering. I'm not saying mortgage brokers have to run out and learn insurance and get licensed. I'm not saying you have to run out and get licensed as wealth management advisors. What I'm saying is you have to pause and start building a business where, like David Maynard is in Montreal, makes more money on his planning side than on his mortgage side. We have to introduce people into our office. I have a financial planner and put them on staff and say, hey, all these clients, I'm introducing them all to you. And we're going to keep all that business in house, and I'm going to have a financial planning company running in tandem. Nothing to do with my mortgage business. Running in tandem with my mortgage business, and you're going to also sell insurance, and we're going to keep those insurance in book. Now the stats are very clear. If a client has 2.5 products with you, This is a bank stack. They have 2.5 products with you. You've got them. You've got pretty much all your business, right? Mm-hmm. So as mortgage brokers, we're giving them one product. Well, I'm telling our community, you've got to think of a way where you can engage with at least 3 products with them, and you own this client. When it comes up for renewal on mortgage, the conversation is not even going to be with the mortgage supplier. It's going to be with Scott, who not only set up my mortgage, but he set up my insurance, and he set up my property insurance for that matter, and he set up and that's where the future is to build a business that is a book, that has some value, that is some annuity, and is saleable and brings value to both the consumer and the business owner.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, it sounds to me, and I know that I asked you, I said, so should a broker do all these things like you had said earlier? Know what you're good at and do one thing, and just have strategic partnerships and think and build your business long term. It sounds to me like you're kind of building like a nimble bank that, in a sense, it's not like a typical bank like a Ford dealer where you go in and you can only get a Ford, but it's very exciting. I agree with you. I think that the opportunity is exciting in our industry, and I'm looking forward to seeing sort of how the next few years play out. But we got to be thinking bigger than just doing doing the mortgage and saying goodbye. And hopefully I talk to you in 5 years.
Yeah. I don't think there's anyone in our community, in our mortgage broker community, who possibly thinks there's going to be more lenders, higher commissions, and less competition. I know we all think the opposite.
Right. No, agreed. So last question, and this is one of my favorites. So if you woke up tomorrow and you had sold your business and you moved to another town about the same size as where you currently live, and you needed to rebuild your mortgage, you need to build a mortgage business, and you can't contact any of your previous contacts and your old clients because you have this ironclad contract. So what would be the first 3 things you would do? You're in this new community, you're starting from scratch. What would you do? What's the first 3 steps?
Well, I joined some, for both personal and business reasons, I joined some community clubs, be it the ski club or whatever, and obviously start meeting neighbors and friends and so on. And really that you're asking for 3 things to do. I mean, obviously I'd build some kind of presence with some kind of storefront or whatever. I wouldn't just work out of my basement. If I wanted to build this business right, I'd want to have that kind of, especially if you're in a smaller town, that kind of public appeal. But mostly I would join a club and start making contacts and acquaintances, because as I mentioned to you, one client, if I can do one mortgage for the guy at my club, well, that should give me another 2 or 3. And those 2 or 3 should give me another 2 or 3. So now I'm up to 9, 10, 12. And then as you know, it just blossoms from there.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Peter, for taking the time to share your insights with us. I'm excited about this interview, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Have a great weekend.
Okay, take care.
Take care.
Hey, thanks again for listening, and hopefully you got inspired from my conversation with Peter. I know I did. A couple of things I took. At the very end, he starts talking about the idea that as a mortgage broker, you need to start thinking about, those other lines of business, building wealth partners. And I've seen definitely the most successful brokers that I know that are building monster businesses are also building great relationships, whether they have an ownership component to it, but they really do focus on having, you wrap your arms around that client, you give them the mortgage, and then there's other services that you can do. And so definitely own well would be something that would really help well with that. Okay, so the best piece of advice Peter gave me was, I remember I sat with him and I said, hey, Peter, if you were starting over today, what would you do as a mortgage broker? And he said, I would spend all my time and energy to get 250 clients, and then I'd spend all my time and energy marketing those 250 clients. And which is what he's got like 7,000 clients now. So it's he's got a pretty good sized database, and that's why he doesn't need to be out chasing new clients all the time. And I see people that have been in business the same amount of time as Peter, and every year it's like a brand new year. They got to try to find more business again, and it's because they never put these systems in place. And so I would encourage you to think about, okay, if you're playing the long game, then make sure you build a business that you invest in those clients and referral partners. Thanks again for listening. I'm Scott Beckford. And as I always say, there's no problem in your mortgage business that someone else hasn't already solved. Your problem is who's got the answer. Hopefully this podcast provides some of those answers. Thanks for listening, and I will see you on the next episode.